The cafe was a small, cozy place tucked away on a quiet street in the city. Its walls were lined with pictures of old musicians, faded photographs, and shelves filled with dusty books. The aroma of coffee and baked goods filled the air, mingling with the soft chatter of customers. It was the kind of place people came to relax, to take a break from the busy streets outside and to enjoy a moment of calm. Behind the counter moved a young waitress, her movements smooth and practiced. She carried plates and cups with care, balancing trays effortlessly while greeting customers with a warm smile. Most people saw her only as a waitress. She was friendly and attentive, always making sure everyone had what they needed, but there was a quietness about her that few noticed. She rarely spoke about herself, and when she laughed, it was soft and reserved. People often assumed her life was ordinary, filled with long shifts and little excitement. She didn't mind. She had her own little world, a place she visited only when no one was looking, a place that allowed her to escape the routines of the day. In the corner of the cafe stood an old upright piano. Its wood was scratched and worn, and some of the keys had yellowed with age. Most customers barely noticed it, thinking of it as a decoration rather than an instrument. A few times people had asked the waitress if she could play, and she would smile politely and shake her head. It wasn't that she didn't know how. It was more that she had learned long ago that talent was often wasted when no one cared to listen. One afternoon, a group of regular customers gathered near the piano. They had been coming to the cafe for months, enjoying the coffee, the pastries, and the quiet atmosphere. One of them, leaning casually against the piano, glanced at the young waitress as she served another table. He smirked and said, "Bet you can't play that piano. It's probably too old for anyone to get anything decent out of it." His friends laughed, teasing, enjoying the casual challenge. They didn't expect a response, and she gave none. She just nodded politely and moved on, carrying a tray of drinks to a nearby table. After the cafe quieted down that evening, when the last customers had left and the chairs were stacked on tables, she found herself drawn to the piano. She lingered in the corner, fingers hovering over the keys. There was a moment of hesitation, a pause where doubt tried to creep in. But then she closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let her hands move. At first the notes were soft and careful, testing the piano, feeling its response. Then slowly a melody began to emerge. It was simple at first, a gentle tune that could easily have gone unnoticed. But as she played, the music grew richer, deeper, full of emotion and subtle complexity. The sound filled the empty cafe, echoing off the walls and mingling with the scent of coffee. It was a melody that spoke of quiet afternoons, of dreams held close, of emotions kept hidden. The notes rose and fell, gentle yet confident, carrying the weight of years spent in silent practice. She played from memory, from instinct, from a place deep within her that had always loved music more than anything else. Her fingers moved effortlessly over the keys, each one finding its place, each chord resonating with clarity and beauty. From the kitchen, the cafe owner peeked around the corner, surprised by the sound. He had seen her daily, moving through the cafe with efficiency and grace, but he had never heard anything like this. He stood quietly, listening as the music washed over him. It wasn't just skill. It was feeling, expression, passion. The owner realized that this young woman, who had seemed ordinary in every other way, was extraordinary in ways he hadn't imagined. Outside the cafe, a street musician passing by paused as he heard the melody. He pressed his ear to the door, captivated by the sound. It was rare to hear something so moving, something that could touch the heart without words. Inside, the waitress played on, unaware of the world beyond the cafe walls that had begun to notice her talent. Each note was an expression of herself, of the emotions she had carried silently for years. The music was her voice, her story, and it flowed freely, unencumbered by fear or doubt. For the first time in a long while, she felt completely alive. The routine of her days, the endless cups of coffee, the clattering of plates, all of it faded into the background. In this moment, she was not a waitress. She was a musician, an artist, a storyteller. The piano, old and worn, became an extension of herself, each key a channel through which she could pour her thoughts and feelings. Time seemed to stop, and the cafe became a world of its own, filled only with the music and the emotions it carried. The cafe owner finally approached her, quietly and respectfully. He didn't want to interrupt the flow of the music, but he needed to acknowledge it. He gently tapped on the counter, and she paused, looking up with a faint smile. He nodded, his eyes wide with admiration. "I had no idea," he said softly. "That was incredible." She nodded, almost shyly, but there was a hint of pride in her eyes. For so long she had kept her music private, uncertain if anyone would ever appreciate it. And now, someone had seen, truly seen, the depth of her talent. Word of her performance spread quickly among the few staff and regulars who had stayed late that evening. By the next day, whispers filled the cafe. Customers mentioned the beautiful music, expressing curiosity about the mysterious melody that had echoed through the empty space. Some remembered the playful challenge from the previous afternoon and laughed quietly, realizing they had underestimated her. Others were simply amazed that someone they had seen as ordinary could create something so extraordinary. Though the attention was new, she remained grounded. Music had always been her sanctuary, her escape from the noise and demands of daily life. She didn't seek fame or recognition. She wanted only to express herself, to let the music speak when words were not enough. And yet, she began to notice something subtle changing around her. People who had overlooked her suddenly paid attention. Conversations hushed when she played. Eyes lingered. Smiles brightened. For the first time, she realized that her talent could have an impact beyond herself. That evening, as she closed the cafe and prepared to leave, she sat once more at the piano. She played a soft, lingering tune, allowing herself to be fully immersed in the music. The notes carried her hopes, her fears, her quiet joys and sorrows. They told a story of resilience, of patience, and of the hidden depths that often go unnoticed in everyday life. In that moment, she understood that her music had power, not just in its beauty, but in its ability to reveal a part of herself that words could never capture. As she left the cafe, the streetlights, the next day, the cafe felt different. Even before she arrived, the young waitress sensed a change in the air. Whispers followed her as she moved from table to table, and curious glances were cast her way. Some customers lingered longer than usual, hoping to catch a hint of the music they had heard about. She smiled politely, pouring coffee and refilling pastry. By the time part 3 began, the young waitress had become a small local sensation. Videos of her playing the piano had started appearing online, capturing the hearts of viewers from all over the city. People were amazed that a waitress, someone they had seen only serving coffee and pastries, could play with such depth and skill. The comments poured in, expressing admiration, encouragement, and amazement. Each message reminded her that her music had the power to move people, even strangers, and she found herself feeling a quiet sense of pride. She never sought fame, but knowing that her music could touch lives brought her joy she had not experienced before. Her days at the cafe were now a mixture of work and performance. She still took orders, refilled drinks, and cleaned tables, but her music had become a central part of the experience for customers. They would often arrive early or linger late, hoping to hear her play. The cafe owner noticed an increase in visitors and business, which he attributed to the charm and talent of his young waitress. While she remained humble and grounded, her talent had begun to reshape the atmosphere of the cafe, making it a place where people came not just for coffee but for a moment of beauty and inspiration. The waitress, despite the growing attention, continued to practice diligently. After her shifts, she would stay behind, experimenting with melodies and challenging herself with more complex compositions. She wanted her music to be genuine, heartfelt, and expressive, not simply technically impressive. Each day brought new discoveries, subtle variations in tone, different ways to convey emotion, and the exploration of her own limits as a musician. Her dedication was evident, and those who watched her felt the authenticity in every note. Local musicians and artists began to notice her as well. One afternoon, a man carrying a violin case stopped by the cafe. He had heard of her performances and wanted to see them for himself. When he listened, he was captivated by the depth of her talent. He approached her, introducing himself and suggesting they collaborate. At first, she was hesitant, unsure if her music should be shared beyond the piano she knew so well. But as they played together, the harmony of piano and violin created a new layer of emotion, enhancing the beauty of the music she had already been producing. It was a moment that opened her eyes to the possibilities of collaboration and growth. The waitress began receiving invitations to perform at small events and local gatherings. Each invitation came with a mix of excitement and nerves. Performing for a crowd was different from playing in the cafe, where the audience was familiar and relaxed. Now she was stepping into spaces where attention and expectation were more intense. She spent hours preparing, ensuring that each piece she performed captured her emotions and conveyed them to the audience. Her confidence grew with each performance, and she discovered a joy in connecting with people through her music. Despite her growing reputation, she remained humble and approachable. She continued to serve tables, greet customers with a smile, and maintain the routines that had always been part of her life. Her humility made her story even more compelling. People admired not just her talent but the way she carried herself, grounded and kind despite the attention she was receiving. She became a source of inspiration, showing that extraordinary talent could exist in ordinary roles, waiting to be discovered and shared. The cafe owner watched all of this unfold with pride. He had never imagined that his small cafe would become a stage for such talent. The atmosphere had shifted. There was a sense of anticipation and excitement whenever she sat at the piano. The staff also noticed the change. They began encouraging her, helping with setup, and even suggest by the time Part 4 began, the young waitress's life was changing in ways she had never imagined. Invitations to perform at small community events, local theaters, and charity functions started arriving steadily. Each opportunity brought excitement and nerves. She had grown accustomed to playing in the cafe where the audience was familiar and comfortable, but now she faced new spaces, larger audiences, and greater expectations. The first time she stepped onto a small stage outside of her usual setting, her hands trembled slightly over the keys. The room was full of strangers, all waiting to hear her play, and she felt the weight of their anticipation. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, reminding herself that music was her refuge and her voice. The first notes were tentative, testing the space, testing the ears that listened. Then as the melody unfolded, her confidence returned. The audience became silent, completely absorbed in the music. Each phrase carried her emotions, her story, and her quiet determination. By the time she finished, the room was filled with applause, not just polite clapping, but heartfelt appreciation for the talent and honesty she had shared. She felt a mixture of relief, pride, and a deep sense of connection with everyone present. Performing outside the cafe was a learning experience. She realized that she had to adapt to different pianos, acoustics, and spaces. Each venue was unique, and she needed to adjust her playing accordingly. At times, she made mistakes, hitting the wrong notes or losing timing. But she learned to recover gracefully, understanding that imperfection could make her music feel more human and relatable. The audience responded not to perfection alone, but to the emotion she conveyed and the dedication she displayed. With each performance, her confidence and skill grew. Despite the growing attention, she remained humble and grounded. She continued her work at the cafe, serving customers, refilling drinks, and maintaining the routines that had always been part of her life. She never let the idea of fame or recognition overshadow her love for music. Her priority was always the music itself, the way it allowed her to express emotions, tell stories, and connect with others. The balance between her cafe duties and her musical performances kept her focused and gave her a sense of stability amidst the whirlwind of opportunities. By the time Part 5 began, the young waitress had reached a turning point in her life. Her talent, once hidden behind the routine of serving coffee and pastries, had grown into something larger and more powerful than she had ever imagined. Invitations to perform had multiplied, including offers from larger venues and even opportunities to record her music professionally. Each new chance brought excitement and fear. She was aware that her life was changing rapidly, yet she wanted to approach it with the same humility and dedication that had carried her this far. One afternoon, after finishing a shift at the cafe, she received an email from a well-known recording studio. They had seen videos of her performances online and wanted to discuss a potential contract. She read the message carefully, her heart racing. The thought of her music being recorded, heard by people far beyond her city, filled her with both excitement and trepidation. She spent the next few days thinking carefully, weighing her options and reflecting on her journey. Her music had always been personal, a reflection of her emotions, and after the monumental performance that had brought her so much recognition, the young waitress found herself reflecting on how far she had come. While Part 5 had marked the peak of her public acclaim, she realized that her journey was far from over. Music had become more than just a passion or a hobby. It was a way to connect with others, to share emotions, and to make a tangible difference in the lives of people who listened. Part 6 would explore the next stage of her growth, where she learned to balance fame, personal growth, and the ongoing pursuit of her art. The first weeks after her big theater performance were filled with interviews, meet and greets, and social media attention. Messages from fans and followers poured in, each expressing admiration, awe, and gratitude. Some wrote about how her music had helped them through difficult times, while others shared that her performances had inspired them to pursue their own dreams. She read these messages quietly, often in the early morning hours before beginning her shifts at the cafe. Each note reminded her of the responsibility and power that came with her gift, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. While the attention was flattering, it also brought new challenges. She struggled at times to maintain the balance between her cafe responsibilities and her growing musical obligations. There were moments of exhaustion where she questioned whether she could continue at the same pace. Yet she understood that both worlds were important. The cafe had been her foundation, the place where she honed her skill and built her confidence, and it remained a grounding force in her life. She worked diligently, knowing that each act of service, each smile she offered customers was part of who she was. During one quiet afternoon at the cafe, she noticed a young boy sitting in the corner, scribbling in a notebook. He looked up at her with wide eyes, clearly shy yet fascinated. Over the next few weeks, she noticed that he kept returning, often sitting near the piano, listening intently whenever she played. One day, she approached him gently and asked if he liked music. The boy nodded enthusiastically, explaining that he had always wanted to learn but didn't know where to start. She smiled and offered to teach him some basics, showing him how to find notes on the keys and how to create simple melodies. Over time, the boy's confidence grew, and she saw the spark of passion in his eyes, a reflection of her own journey. Teaching him reminded her why music mattered. It was not just for personal expression, but also for inspiring others. The mentorship experience gave her a new perspective. She began to realize that her role as a musician was evolving. It was no longer just about performing. It was also about guiding others, nurturing talent, and creating opportunities for growth. She started offering informal lessons to other young musicians who visited the cafe or reached out online. Her humility and approachability made her an effective mentor, and she discovered a sense of fulfillment that went beyond applause or recognition. Each student she helped carried forward a piece of her influence, and she took pride in seeing them develop their own voices. As her influence expanded, she also faced decisions about her career trajectory. Record labels, performance venues, and even television programs expressed interest in featuring her story and music. She carefully considered each opportunity, mindful of maintaining her authenticity and staying true to the music she loved. With guidance from trusted mentors and careful self-reflection, she chose projects that aligned with her values, ones that allowed her to share her art without compromising her principles. Each step she took was deliberate, showing her growing maturity and understanding of both the music industry and her personal aspirations. She also learned the importance of rest and self-care. The early days of balancing cafe work, practice, teaching, and public appearances had been exhausting. She realized that sustaining her art required maintaining her physical, emotional, and mental health. She created routines to ensure she had quiet time to practice, reflect, and rejuvenate. These routines allowed her to maintain the intensity of her performances while avoiding burnout. Her dedication to self-care demonstrated that talent alone was not enough. It needed to be supported by discipline, balance, and awareness of one's limits. Part 6 also brought opportunities for collaboration. Other musicians, inspired by her story and her skill, reached out to create joint performances and compositions. She found joy in these collaborations, discovering new textures, rhythms, and harmonies she had never explored before. Working with other artists expanded her understanding of music as a shared language, a medium for connection and expression. Each collaboration pushed her boundaries, encouraged creativity, and allowed her to experiment in ways that enriched her own musical voice. Amidst all the progress and attention, she remained deeply committed to the cafe. She continued serving customers with kindness, maintaining the routines that had shaped her early life, and finding inspiration in the simple moments of human connection that occurred there. Her music had given her a platform and a voice, but the cafe was her anchor, a reminder of where she had started and what grounded her amidst the whirlwind of new opportunities. She recognized that the balance between fame and humility, between growth and stability, was crucial to sustaining her passion and impact. One evening, after a long day filled with lessons, rehearsals, and interactions with fans, she sat alone at the piano in the quiet cafe. The room was dimly lit, the aroma of coffee lingering in the air. She played a new composition, letting her emotions flow freely through the keys. The music carried her experiences, moments of doubt, triumph, connection, and growth. Each note reflected her journey, from a young waitress quietly practicing in the corner to a musician touching lives far beyond the cafe walls. In that moment, she felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that she had found her purpose and was using her talent to its fullest potential. Her journey also highlighted the importance of resilience and perseverance. There were times when she faced criticism, logistical challenges, or self-doubt, yet she continued, motivated by her love for music and the knowledge that her art could inspire and uplift others. She learned that true success was not measured by fame or fortune alone, but by the ability to remain authentic, overcome obstacles, and make a positive impact on the world through one's passion. As Part 6 concluded, the young waitress had fully embraced her identity as both a musician and a mentor. She had discovered that her music could reach far beyond her own experiences, inspiring others, building community, and creating opportunities for growth. Her story illustrated that talent could emerge from unexpected places, that humility and dedication were as important as skill, and that the true power of art lay in its ability to touch hearts and transform lives. The journey she had begun in the quiet cafe with a simple upright piano had grown into a life filled with creativity, purpose, and profound connection, and she understood that her story was only continuing to unfold. Experiences, and she wanted to ensure that any step forward stayed true to that spirit. Finally, she decided to visit the studio. The moment she entered, she felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. Professional musicians, recording equipment, and the hum of instruments surrounded her. Yet when she sat at the piano, she felt at home. Her fingers found the keys naturally, and the music flowed as it always had, authentic, heartfelt, and full of emotion. The producers and staff listened in silence, captivated by the depth and beauty of her playing. By the time she finished, they were filled with admiration and eager to work with her. She smiled, a quiet sense of accomplishment filling her chest, knowing that her passion had led her to this moment. As she began recording, she discovered new ways to express herself through music. The studio allowed her to experiment with different sounds, arrangements, and techniques. She collaborated with other musicians, learning from their experience while maintaining her own voice. Each recording session was a journey, challenging her to grow, to explore, and to connect with her music in deeper ways. Her talent, once confined to a small cafe, was now reaching audiences she had only dreamed of, yet she remained grounded, focused on the joy and meaning that music brought to her life. Meanwhile, the cafe continued to be a special place for her. She never forgot where her journey began. Whenever she returned to play there, it felt like coming home. The familiarity, the smell of coffee, the friendly faces of regular customers, and the quiet corner with the old upright piano reminded her of the roots of her talent. Even as her reputation grew, she found comfort in these moments, understanding that her connection to her beginnings gave her strength and perspective. Her story began to inspire others. People who had felt overlooked, underestimated, or stuck in ordinary roles reached out, sharing how her journey encouraged them to pursue their own passions. Some were musicians, some artists, and others were people exploring hidden talents in fields unrelated to music. The young waitress's experiences demonstrated that opportunity and recognition could emerge from the most unexpected places, and that dedication, humility, and authenticity were as important as talent itself. With her growing influence, she also became involved in community initiatives. She participated in charity events, performing to raise funds for causes she cared about. She volunteered time to teach music to children, helping them discover their own abilities and express themselves creatively. These experiences deepened her understanding of the impact music could have beyond performance, connecting hearts, inspiring hope, and fostering compassion. She realized that her journey was not only about personal success but about creating positive change in the lives of others. Despite the busy schedule, She continued to practice diligently. Each day brought new challenges, new compositions, and new ways to refine her skill. She approached her craft with a mindset of growth, understanding that mastery was a journey rather than a destination. Her performances became richer, more expressive, and more nuanced with every experience. Audiences noticed this evolution, often commenting on how her music had matured and deepened, carrying an authenticity that touched them profoundly. As she prepared for a larger live performance, one that would bring her music to thousands of people, she reflected on her journey. She thought of the quiet moments in the cafe, the playful challenge that had sparked her first public performance, and the long hours she had spent practicing alone. Each memory reminded her of the resilience, patience, and determination that had carried her forward. Standing on the stage, she felt a mixture of nerves and exhilaration, knowing that her music could now reach far beyond the small corner of the city where it had begun. The night of the performance arrived. The theater was filled with people eager to hear her play. As she sat at the grand piano on stage, the lights dimmed and the audience fell silent. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to play. The music flowed effortlessly, rich with emotion, technical brilliance, and heartfelt expression. Every note resonated, every phrase told a story, and the audience was captivated. By the time she finished, there was a moment of stunned silence, followed by an eruption of applause and cheers. She stood, bowed quietly, and felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything she had experienced before. Her music had touched hundreds of people in that moment, and she understood the power of her gift. After the performance, she was approached by producers, journalists, and fans. Messages of admiration and gratitude poured in, sharing how her music had moved them, inspired them, and even helped them through difficult times. She listened, humbled and grateful, realizing that her journey had come full circle. What had started as a quiet passion, hidden behind the daily routine of serving in a cafe, had grown into a source of inspiration and connection for countless people. Even as her fame grew, she remained committed to her roots. The cafe, the old upright piano, and the community that had first believed in her remained central to her identity. She continued to perform there whenever possible, remembering the moments that had shaped her and the joy of sharing music in its most intimate form. Her story became a testament to the importance of staying grounded, remaining authentic, and cherishing the experiences that had nurtured her talent. By the end of Part 5, the young waitress had transformed from an unnoticed employee into a celebrated musician whose performances left audiences in awe. Her journey illustrated that talent could emerge from the most ordinary places, that dedication and authenticity were key to success, and that music had the power to inspire, connect, and transform lives. She had not only achieved recognition, but had created a meaningful impact on the people around her, proving that a quiet passion, when nurtured and shared, could change the world in remarkable ways. The cafe had become a hub for local talent and a community space. People came not only to enjoy coffee and pastries, but also to hear the young waitress play. Her performances inspired other musicians, artists, and aspiring performers who began sharing their own talents. The cafe owner encouraged this creativity, hosting small events and workshops. The waitress, while still modest, played a vital role in this transformation. Her presence, her dedication, and her music had a ripple effect, encouraging others to explore their abilities and share them with the world. As she became more visible in the community, she began receiving mentorship from experienced musicians. They offered guidance on technique, performance, and even the business side of music. At first, she was hesitant, unsure if she wanted to fully step into the world of professional music. But the mentorship helped her see the potential in her talent and the opportunities available if she chose to embrace them. She began to view her music not only as a personal expression, but also as a gift that could inspire and uplift others. One day, a well-known local pianist visited the cafe after hearing about her performances. He listened quietly as she played, clearly impressed. After the piece ended, he approached her with an encouraging smile. "You have something very special," he said. "Have you considered recording your music or performing on a larger stage?" She smiled and shook her head, unsure if she was ready for that step. Yet his words lingered in her mind, planting a seed of possibility that she couldn't ignore. For the first time, she considered that her music could reach far beyond the cafe walls. In the following weeks, she continued to perform both at the cafe and at small events. Each experience taught her something new: how to engage an audience, how to convey emotion more effectively, and how to maintain her authenticity even under pressure. She discovered that performing was not just about technical skill. It was about connecting with people, sharing a part of herself, and creating moments of shared emotion. These lessons strengthened her confidence and deepened her love for music. Despite the increasing recognition, she never lost sight of her roots. She remained committed to her cafe work, understanding that it was a part of her identity and had taught her discipline, patience, and humility. She found joy in the everyday interactions with customers, in the small moments of kindness and connection. Her life had expanded in exciting ways, but she valued the balance that kept her grounded. Music had opened doors, but it had also taught her the importance of remaining authentic and connected to the people and places that shaped her. The community's response to her talent continued to grow. Local media began to take notice, writing articles about the waitress who had captivated audiences with her piano performances. Videos of her playing went viral, drawing attention from people outside the city. She received letters and messages from individuals inspired by her story, expressing how her music had touched them during difficult times or simply brought joy to their day. These responses reinforced her understanding of the power of music to connect people and inspire hope. Through all the changes, she remained dedicated to her craft. She spent hours practicing, exploring new techniques, and experimenting with compositions. Each piece she played was an opportunity to express something new, to tell a story, or to convey an emotion that could not be captured in words. Her music was a reflection of her experiences, her dreams, and her resilience. It was honest, heartfelt, and authentic, which made it resonate deeply with her audience. In addition to performance, she began mentoring younger musicians who showed interest in learning. She encouraged them to find their own voice, to practice diligently, and to express themselves authentically. She shared the lessons she had learned about balancing work, passion, and personal growth, hoping to inspire others to pursue their dreams without losing themselves in the process. Her guidance was gentle yet firm, reflecting her humility and experience. By the end of Part 4, the young waitress had transitioned from a local curiosity to a respected and admired musician within her community. She had navigated the challenges of performing in new environments, managing growing attention and remaining true to herself. Her performances continued to captivate audiences, and her story inspired countless individuals to believe in the possibility of hidden talents being discovered and celebrated. Her journey was still unfolding, and the possibilities ahead were becoming increasingly vast, filled with opportunities to share her music with even more people, and to continue growing as an artist and a person, ting new ideas for her performances. The young waitress realized that her music was now a shared experience, touching the lives of everyone around her and creating a community united by the beauty of her melodies. Social media played a significant role in expanding her reach. Clips of her performances were shared and reshared, attracting viewers from beyond her city. Comments poured in, with people expressing how deeply moved they were by her playing. Some shared stories of how her music had helped them through difficult moments, while others simply expressed awe and admiration. The young waitress read these messages quietly, touched by the way her music could connect with people she had never met. She realized that her piano had become a bridge between her world and the lives of others. With her growing popularity came new challenges. She had to manage requests, balance her cafe duties, and prepare for performances. At times it felt overwhelming, and she questioned whether she could handle the increasing attention. But she reminded herself that her passion for music had always been her guiding force. She focused on each note, each melody, and each audience, allowing herself to stay present in the moment. This focus helped her navigate the complexities of her rising recognition, while remaining true to herself and her music. One evening, after a particularly moving performance at the cafe, a local journalist approached her. He wanted to write a feature about her story, how a waitress with a hidden talent had captured the hearts of the community and beyond. She agreed, speaking honestly about her journey, her love for music, and the quiet moments that had shaped her as an artist. The article was published a few days later, bringing even more attention to her performances. People who had never been to the cafe were now traveling from different parts of the city just to hear her play. She remained grounded, using the attention not as a platform for ego, but as a way to share her music and connect with more people. Her evenings were often spent reflecting on how much her life had changed. She had discovered a new confidence, a deeper understanding of herself, and a connection to people through her music that she had never imagined. Her role as a waitress had given her discipline, patience, and a grounded perspective, while her music allowed her to express emotions that words could not capture. The balance of these two worlds shaped her, creating a harmony that was reflected in every note she played. As her reputation grew, she was invited to perform at small local theaters and community events. Each performance was a new experience, testing her ability to engage a larger audience while maintaining the authenticity that had always been at the heart of her music. She discovered the joy of seeing her audience moved, of hearing their reactions, and of realizing that her music could create shared moments of beauty and emotion. It was a powerful realization, one that deepened her commitment to her craft and her belief in the power of music to touch lives. In Part 3, the young waitress had begun to experience the broader impact of her talent. From social media attention to local performances, her music was reaching people she had never imagined. Yet through all of this, she remained humble, dedicated, and deeply connected to the joy of playing piano. Her journey was unfolding in ways that were both exciting and challenging, and each new experience brought growth, discovery, and inspiration. Her music had started as a private sanctuary, but it was now becoming a gift for the world, one note at a time, yet she remained focused on her work. Despite the growing attention, she moved through the cafe as she always had, efficient, gentle, and calm. It was the music she knew that would speak for her, not any words she could say. Around mid-morning, a small group of regulars gathered near the corner where the piano stood. One of them, a middle-aged man with a playful grin, leaned on the instrument and said, "So, are we finally going to hear it today, or are we just going to talk about it?" His friends laughed, nudging each other. The waitress paused for a moment, glancing at the piano, and then simply nodded. There was no boast, no hesitation, only quiet acceptance. She moved toward the keys, her hands hovering above them, ready to let the music flow. As her fingers touched the piano, a hush fell over the cafe. The customers, employees, and even the regulars who had teased her before all stopped to watch. The first notes came softly, almost hesitantly, as if she were testing the air. Then, gradually, the melody grew, filling the cafe with a warmth and clarity that seemed to make time slow. The music was both delicate and powerful, weaving a story of hope, struggle, and quiet determination. Each chord resonated with depth. Each phrase was rich with emotion. The listeners felt themselves drawn into the world she created, swept along by the currents of her expression. The cafe owner, who had once treated her as just another employee, now watched with awe. He had seen countless musicians, some trained and polished, yet none had moved him as she did. There was a purity in her playing, an authenticity that could not be taught. It was clear that she poured her heart into every note, that each melody carried a piece of her soul. He realized that this young woman, who had appeared ordinary, was extraordinary in ways he had never imagined. Word began to spread quickly. Regulars who had witnessed her performance shared the story with friends. Soon, people who had never set foot in the cafe were stopping by, eager to hear the mysterious waitress play. Some even came with cameras and phones, hoping to capture the magic themselves. The young waitress did not mind the growing attention. In fact, she welcomed the chance to share her music, though she still approached it with humility. For her, the